It's my closest friend. Every day I ask it all sorts of questions. A cheap hotel, a Korean restaurant, train times, food recipes. Google is my sidekick. In a few seconds, it meets my every need. That's the magic of Google. Google is also my TV and my favorite translator.
I love Google.
Basically, I can't do without it. With Gmail, I send and receive emails and organize my schedule. And this friend never leaves my side. On the road, I find my way with Google Maps. In the street, I call people with my Android telephone, managed by Google. I can even talk to it.
Ok Google, quel temps va-t-il faire aujourd'hui?
Prévision concernant Paris pour aujourd'hui, 17 degrés avec un ciel partiellement nuageux.
Google is now my online store thanks to the product comparison app on its site, Google Shopping. I can also buy plane tickets with the price comparison app on Google Flights. Watch the latest hit videos on YouTube, also run by Google. So by spending all my time with Google, it knows my tastes, my appointments, my favourite videos, what I like to buy and where we're going on vacation. In short, it knows everything about me. But what do I know about Google?
Google veut tout savoir sur nous, mais il veut qu'on sache rien sur lui.
In 17 years, Google has become the wealthiest search engine in the world with a €66 billion turnover. At its helm, two men with the wildest ambitions, like building driverless cars and robots to replace people.
For me, I just try to focus on that and say, what is that future really going to be, and how do we create it?
Can we trust Google? During my investigation, I'd go from surprise to surprise. In the United States, at the company's headquarters, I discovered that behind the vacation resort atmosphere, everything is done to make employees as productive as possible, and that some of them end up burning out.
I would say, mentally burned out. I think being connected all the time.
In Dublin, in Ireland, I'd learn how Google manages to earn so much money from advertising while paying as little tax as possible. In France, I'd see the extent to which Google traces every step of our daily lives, and that starts even in school. Trace is sometimes embarrassing and hard to erase. And finally, in London, I discover how Google hands over our personal data to intelligence services without us knowing.
They're creating the spy machines for the future.
Should we be afraid of Google? How has this search engine become so powerful? This is an investigation into the hidden side of the most secretive giant of the web. Google is first and foremost a success story, just as Americans love them. Like in many of these stories, Google's began in California on the campus of the prestigious Stanford University. Back in 1995, Larry Page and Sergey Brin were computer science students. These two gifted young men had an outlandish PhD research project to create a new search engine for the World Wide Web. Their professor at the time, Terry Winograd, is proud to act as a guide for reporters.
Lydia. Yeah. Hi, these are some people doing a show on Google from French TV. And as you know, you have the famous desk.
I do.
So, Larry had his desk here, and Sergey was upstairs with theory groups.
Right under this desk where I keep nothing but my feet, he was keeping Google.
To create their search engine, they began by saving and stocking millions of web pages on hard disks. But at the time, the two students had little money, and they had to call on their imagination to protect their digital library, as this strange Lego construction at the entrance to the university bears witness.
This is one of the storage servers they built to store large amounts of data from the internet. The idea was that they couldn't afford to use ordinary computing equipment as it was at the day. They decided they could just build it out of Legos. That was solid, it worked, it was fun, it was playful. They enjoyed the idea.
The wild imaginings of these two grown-up kids began attracting investors. Still students, they picked up a check worth $100,000. With cash in hand, they founded a startup in a garage. It was here that Google was born in 1998. Very soon, the search engine was hitting 3 million requests a day. Faster and more effective, Google began to outdo its rivals such as Lycos and Alta Vista. 6 years later, Google was launched on the stock market. In a single day, the two founders became the new billionaires of Silicon Valley. Today, at 42 years old, Larry Page and Sergey Brin are each worth 30 billion euros and rank among the 20 wealthiest people in the world. So when seen like that, Google is dreamland. I wanted to meet the founders and see how their teams work so as to learn how this huge machine works. So I sent an email to their press office. A few days later, I got a reply from Google. We don't have enough bandwidth to take part in a TV report. A strange way of saying we don't have the time. So I decided to pay them a visit in California. During my trip, I'd learned that the startup spirit so dear to these two engineers had changed a lot. Welcome to San Francisco and its famous Golden Gate Bridge. I'm heading to Silicon Valley. It was here that the Google empire was born. The logo itself is an address, present on every street corner. The web giant occupies 30 or so buildings, and it attracts tourists from all over the world. On that day, a group of Japanese students posed in front of a vehicle that has been all around the world. This strange-looking car has mapped the entire planet, helping all find our way to new places.
What do you think of Google?
Oh, well, it's fun. Very creative. Great office.
You would like to work there?
Yeah.
Here's what makes youngsters dream of working at the Google campus in Mountain View. A cool atmosphere, beach volleyball, shaded cafes, free lunches on terraces. You'd think you're in a vacation resort. Most employees known as Googlers are under 30, and they all look very happy. When I discreetly ask them about their work life, they all agree.
Is it cool to work here? Yeah? Yeah.
I've been here for just under a year now. It's good. Well, for me, the food's good. It's good.
The main thing is they pay you a lot of money if you work here. So
you
like, a lot of problems are...
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the resources are really amazing.
And is it always like that here?
No. Today's Take Your Child to Work Day. I mean, it's always very nice, but
Yeah.
it's, you know, with all the kids around, that's mostly take your child to work.
For this special Bring Your Kids Day, everything is laid on. Games, outdoor activities to glorify Google, and to finish, a lovely souvenir photo. Like for this girl, proud to hold up a placard stating, "My dad works at Google." And that's how the American web giant builds its own mythology. To convince us that the atmosphere is just as cool inside, Google has uploaded these videos. Free cafeteria, free gym, massage chairs, table soccer. In short, images that tell us Google is the dream place to work at. Every month, the firm hires dozens of new employees. But becoming a Googler isn't a given for everybody. Google receives 2.5 million CVs a year, but only hires about 7,000 people. It is spoiled for choice, and the hiring process is unforgiving. David Beiser is a former Google headhunter. For 7 years, this American helped hire 5,000 employees in Europe. To help us understand the web giant's recruiting methods, he showed us this video which he made for its site.
Google is made up of a number of individuals who have very creative and unique backgrounds, and so that's why we're very interested to know what makes you different and what makes you potential Google material.
Before finding out if you're Google material, you have to undergo 8 interviews, sometimes even more.
We had a candidate for a marketing role, and he went through 21 interviews, which, of course, is really the extreme. And the worst part about it was he wasn't accepted at the end, and I had to call him and say, I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work out.
Google wants to hire the most creative people with the best diplomas. What makes a difference is one astonishing quality: Googlitude.
It was about what have you done in your life that's really impressive, right? So it's not just a general interest of I like to go sailing, or I like to go skiing, or I like travel. It's about, you know, I like to go sailing, and I started learning sailing when I was 5 years old, and I joined a club, and then I competed, and I was competitive in sailing, and I joined the junior France sailing team, or whatever it was, and I competed on a national level. It's that level of intensity in some kind of activity that we were looking for.
Googlitude, a portmanteau word coined by the founders as one's sole aim, picking out those ready to give everything for Google. The man who knows the most about Googlitude is in this restaurant, 30 minutes from the web giant's HQ.
Budget Direct customers get a highly rated home insurance claim service, but not everyone's a Budget Direct customer.
Going up. No, too fast.
Get a highly rated claim service. Get more with Budget Direct.
What do you want from me?
Your past. I need you to relive the life of your ancestors, an assassin.
That felt real.
It was.
Assassin's Creed in cinemas New Year's Day.
Christmas specials have come to Woolworths this week with our premium 100% Aussie ham, double smoked with Australian hardwood, now $10 a kilo.
That's why I picked Woolies for Christmas.
The man who knows the most about Googlitude is in this restaurant, 30 minutes from the web giant's HQ.
Pick up 2 chicken curry.
Charlie Ayers is a legend amongst Googlers. He's the man behind the Google cafeteria, and he's made it the best of all company eateries in Silicon Valley.
We roughly do between 125 to 200 lunches daily. Thank you. Google was thousands of lunches a day.
The success of his cuisine lies in his small dishes worthy of top restaurants, all made with local organic produce.
This is our Buddha bowl. It's all vegan dish. Brown rice, cauliflower puree, roasted root vegetables and mushrooms, caramelized onions, baby carrots.
Is it the kind of recipe you did with Google?
Similar, yes. My mission was always to create healthy foods that didn't tax your body so you could focus and be able to work. You know, rather than giving you a big, heavy meal in the middle of the day where you want to sleep. Most certainly increased productivity.
Feeding your employees well to have them work harder. That's one of the recipes Google invented early on. Charlie was one of the first employees to be hired by the founders.
Beginning, long ago.
So you're there?
Yeah, look a little bit different there, don't I? A little younger.
This 1999 video features the young Charlie, and in the line, the 2 bosses of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Even back then, they already had their tricks to make the employees more efficient.
Larry had asked me to remove the element of predictability in order to keep people on campus so they weren't leaving. So you multiply that by how many employees are with them and how much they're making an hour. Productivity is not going up like this, it's dropping. So by always keeping them in-house and always using the element of surprise as my greatest and most widely used ingredient.
It worked so well that the Google cafeteria soon became a must for the employees. And former employees remember it like it was yesterday. Christophe Pepin is a former Googler. For 7 years, he worked on the sales team at Google. He's now proud to show us his souvenir album. He understood perfectly the advantages of working for the firm and their effects on the employees.
La magie du système, c'est que sans s'en rendre compte, on va avoir envie de bien faire, quoi. Quand vous avez fait un break de 30 minutes parce que vous avez pu vous dégourdir un peu les jambes, les bras et les yeux à faire un petit baby-foot ou une partie de PlayStation avec vos collègues, vous retournez à votre poste de travail à fond, quoi.
In the cafeteria, employees often eat with their families even in the evening. At Google, there are few boundaries between private and professional life.
L'idée de leur offrir le repas du soir, c'est aussi de dire on ne veut pas que vous vous priviez de voir votre femme et vos enfants si vous en avez. Donc dites-leur de venir, ils vont manger avec vous, vous leur faites la bise, les enfants, la petite famille retournent à la maison, et vous, s'il vous reste 2 heures de travail, eh bien, vous pouvez le faire dans de bonnes conditions, vous êtes content, vous avez vu vos enfants avant qu'ils se couchent. Voilà, donc comme vous êtes content, vous retournez travailler l'heure qui vous reste content, et puis vous rentrez à la maison content, et puis de jour en jour, on est content. Voilà, c'est aussi simple que ça.
The cafeteria is much more than a company eatery. In this video, employees don't balk at putting their private lives online. Like this Googler who makes a marriage proposal in front of all his colleagues.
Il y a un moment où la vie chez Google peut devenir la vie tout court, une raison d'être, une raison de faire. Et là, il se projette éventuellement à long terme.
Entering Google is like entering a new family. But for those who already have a family, like Christophe, it can get a bit heavy. This company culture ended up weighing on his life at home. After 7 years, he decided to quit.
Il y a 3 ans, ça a été aussi une période où je voulais consacrer un peu plus de temps à mes enfants. J'ai eu un petit peu envie de lever le pied aussi.
Googlitude doesn't suit everyone, and those who find it hard to accept are soon escorted to the exit. That's what happened to a former employee who we spoke to on the phone.
Il m'a juste répondu « Tu es culturellement incompatible ». Et là, sur le coup, ça veut dire quoi? Et à la réflexion après, je pense que le mot culturellement incompatible voulait dire surtout pas assez dans le moule, pas assez aligné sur la culture Google.
Est-ce que ça veut dire que vous n'étiez pas assez googly?
Ah oui, clairement. Clairement. C'est un peu la même chose qu'on retrouve chez Disney ou chez Apple, toutes ces boîtes-là. Cette capacité à s'injecter un peu de l'ADN de la boîte, mais à un point où on laisse son cerveau au vestiaire, quoi. C'est pas aussi caricatural qu'une secte, mais on sent qu'il y a un poids comme ça, un peu indicible, mais très présent.
Lots of former employees have denounced Googlitude on this blog. Most of them anonymously. Stress, fatigue, productivity. These posts destroy the myth of the perfect company. One of the few former Googlers who dares sign his posts is Joe Canella. I decided to meet him. So it's back to California. On the top story of this typical San Francisco building, Joe is finally taking time to enjoy this very special view.
Got a nice view of the Golden Gate Bridge, just to the left of the St. Ignatius Church.
Joe quit Google 2 years ago, having worked there for 9. From his Google years, he has kept this weird blanket which he made himself.
These used to be all of the T-shirts from my Google days. We've got Charlie, the head chef. My whole life sort of started to become a little bit Googleized. And so, you know, as a Googler, you know, eating Google food, wearing Google clothing, and that sort of thing. And
back then, Google soon became his new family.
going into the office was almost like going home. We were working all the time, and I would write emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just like second nature. I think this is true maybe of many big companies, but the culture at Google is so, you know, strong and positive, and if you're not careful, you know, it could become maybe too much, you know, part of your identity.
But after 9 years, Joe got burned out.
I would say, like, you know, mentally burned out. I think being connected all the time. What's a little bit unique about Google is you don't quite see it coming. Everyone is telling you, you know, that you would be crazy to ever leave. But I in my head, you know, I couldn't quite convince myself that there was, you know, a life outside of Google, or there was something. Where'd we get all this stuff?
They're from our friends and from our...
Now a new life has begun. This former singleton will soon become a dad for the first time.
You guys ready? All right, we're ready.
Joe is preparing to live life without Google, and far from his former job as a salesman. Among the 54,000 Googlers, there are many IT engineers, but also salespeople who sell advertising. The search engine is free, so Google earns its money through advertising, which accounts for 90% of its revenue. Back to Paris, where we decide to go shopping.
Quelle pièce tu veux qu'on mette en avant là, parmi?
These blouses, vests and dresses are top designer brand clothes. Renault sells them at cut price on his website.
On a plus de 100 000 robes en ligne.
His main product is dresses. To have them viewed on the web, he uses a simple yet effective method: advertising on Google.
Je voulais voir avec toi sur notre positionnement sur Google.
The moment he types second-hand black dress, he gets a result. His site is top of the list in a section reserved for advertising, identified by this orange ad sign. To get this result, Renault had to buy the words second-hand black dress from Google at some price.
Alors là, pour être sur la première page, c'est 20 centimes du clic.
20 cents a click doesn't sound like much, but the price can go up at any moment as the words are sold by auction. And the highest bidder wins top spot on Google.
On n'est pas les seuls à essayer de se positionner sur la combinaison de mots robe noire occasion. On a des concurrents. Donc l'enjeu va être de pouvoir se maintenir toujours à la meilleure place, qui est la première place, sur les annonces.
As if by chance, during our shoot, Google informed him that his bid was too low to stay at the top of the list. So, to keep top spot, his website will have to pay 25 cents a click. And it's the same for all the words he buys. Over 60,000 a month, with dozens of different combinations. Renault must outbid rivals on a daily basis. A very complex task.
Dans ce système d'enchères, c'est qu'on ne connaît pas la concurrence. On n'est pas comme dans des enchères publiques, dans une salle de vente. Vous voyez les personnes qui enchérissent, vous savez combien ils sont, vous savez jusqu'où ils sont prêts, quasiment où ils sont prêts à aller. Là, on ne sait pas. On ne sait pas s'il y a eu 10 personnes qui enchérissent, à combien. Donc on est un peu dans le flou et on doit faire notre meilleure estimation pour avoir la position qu'on souhaite.
Il y a Google qui sait, lui seul.
Exactement.
In total, Renault pays Google 300,000 euros a year, half of his marketing budget. These words earn the American firm big bucks. Over 60 billion euros in 2014. Millions of sites advertise on the search engine. But the web giant wants to go even further, winning over stores and restaurants. For that, it has come up with an effective technique that doesn't cost it a cent. When Eric hits the centre of La Rochelle, it's not to go window shopping, but to offer his services.
Bonjour monsieur.
Bonjour.
Je suis Eric Gaborio, photographe agréé Google pour le service des visites virtuelles.
Eric photographs the inside of stores and restaurants for virtual visits that allow surfers to see places before going there.
Donc l'intérêt, c'est que vous lui permettez de découvrir l'ambiance directement depuis son ordinateur.
This restaurant is already on the search engine. Phone number, location, access, everything is indicated, and Google has provided this service for free. Adding a virtual visit could bring in more customers, but this extra service comes at a price.
Et pour un établissement comme le vôtre, il faut compter à peu près 400 € hors taxe, voilà, pour la réalisation de la visite virtuelle.
This money doesn't go to Google, but to Eric. The search engine's aim is to win over small business stealth style.
Alors c'est tout bénef pour Google parce qu'il a sur le terrain des gens qui vont être un peu des ambassadeurs, qui vont présenter Google et qui vont aider Google à venir sur le terrain du commerce local. Voilà. Au revoir.
This former independent photographer has been a Google ambassador for 2 years. Every week he walks the streets of his region trying to win over local businesses. And his hard graft ends up paying. We meet Eric again on the Ile de Ré. He has a virtual visit contract with this hotel.
Voilà, donc le jardin piscine.
D'accord. Donc je vais faire 2 photos à 360 degrés.
To create the virtual visit, Eric will take over 1,000 photos of the hotel's most beautiful spots.
Voilà, c'est terminé.
Vous avez pu faire tout ce que vous vouliez faire?
Très bien. En plus, on a eu beau.
In a few weeks' time, the virtual visit will be on Google, and it will look something like this. To visit the hotel with a few clicks, the manager will pay Eric €750. Not 1 cent goes to Google, but the search engine earns in other ways.
La visite virtuelle, c'est aussi un moyen pour Google détourné de se faire connaître auprès des commerçants pour derrière leur vendre un produit qui va être de la publicité en ligne.
Mais qui va gagner plus d'argent dans l'affaire?
Google gagnera forcément plus d'argent en vendant de la publicité derrière. Ça, c'est bien entendu.
Once the virtual visit goes online, the hotel manager will receive this email. An offer of a €75 reduction for online advertising with Google. But Google has found yet another way to make money by creating its own services, such as Google Shopping and Google Flights, price comparison sites which act as direct competitors to existing sites. For Jean-Pierre Nadir, boss of Easy Voyage, Google has become his best enemy.
Là, ils ont peaufiné, donc...
Jean-Pierre helps people travel the world.
Alors, ces nouvelles photos?
For 15 years, he has run a flight and hotel price comparison site.
Ouais, très chouette. L'Autriche.
His site is now having a makeover. With these new photos, he hopes to bring in new customers. In recent months, he has lost a lot of them. He has even had to lay off 20 employees. According to him, it's Google's fault. To explain the problem, he gave us a demonstration with a flight from Paris to Casablanca.
Donc, si on cherche, par exemple, un vol pour Casablanca, vous trouvez 3 résultats donc sponsorisés, donc publicitaires, puis les résultats publicitaires donc sur le côté, et en plein milieu, le moteur donc de Google Flight.
Since the arrival of Google Flights 4 years ago, Jean-Pierre's site now appears at the bottom of the page, much less well placed than before.
Pourquoi donc on trouve que c'est grave? Pour une raison très simple, c'est qu'on constate aujourd'hui une perte de près de 30% de trafic sur cette partie spécifique au vol.
What makes Jean-Pierre angry is that Google's price comparison site is always at the top of results, when its prices aren't always the best. To prove his point, he makes a comparison with his own site.
Le meilleur prix proposé par le moteur de Google est 237 €. Si on fait la même recherche sur Easy Voyage, on constate assez rapidement que le meilleur tarif est à 164 € vendu par Voyage SNCF.
So the flight suggested by Google is €73 more expensive than the one on Jean-Pierre's site.
Donc là, on voit bien qu'il y a le fait du prince qui décide que ces services sont systématiquement donc en tête, quel que soit le niveau de performance des autres compétiteurs. Et c'est là qu'est le vrai problème.
Does Google manipulate results to promote its own services over those of its competitors? Jean-Pierre
Christmas specials have come to Woolworths this week with our premium 100% Aussie ham, double smoked with Australian hardwood, now $10 a kilo.
That's why I picked Woolies for Christmas.
Sold the car. Went cruising. Bought the car. Hit the road. Get more from gumtree.com.au. Buy, sell, win.
Who knew it was possible to create a sunscreen with high sun protection that doesn't feel greasy on? We did. At Neutrogena, we bring the best of skincare to sun care. Neutrogena. See what's possible.
Does Google manipulate results to promote its own services over those of its competitors? Jean-Pierre Nadir believes so. Along with other sites, he made an official complaint to the European Commission for Competition to denounce the methods of the American firm, which claims 90% of the European market. Google's competitors were finally heard. 5 years after the first complaints, the EU has just launched official proceedings abuse of a dominant position, a blow to the American web giant. At the seat of the European Commission, I met the woman who is making Google tremble.
Hi. Hi. Nice to meet you. Welcome here. Thank you so much for receiving us here.
Margrethe Vestager is the new European Commissioner for Competition. When she was appointed last December, this former Danish politician inherited a number of highly sensitive cases.
So, I imagine that you had many files when you arrived on your desk a few months ago.
All sitting on my desk, just waiting for me to get started.
Among her priorities, Google. For months, she received the complaints of over 30 different companies and made up her mind. The American giant was not respecting the EU's laws on competition.
It's no problem to be big. You can be successful. You can create jobs. You can be whatever. But in Europe, you cannot misuse all the muscle and the size that you have. So the problem is that Google is using its very dominant position in general search to favor or promote its own shopping comparison service.
And it's the problem for consumers?
Yes, we think so, because you should have the best answer.
Known as a tough cookie, the new commissioner is determined to see things through. But proceedings could take years. Google risks paying a fine of up to 10% of its profits, some €6 billion. Brussels also has Google's tax practices firmly in its sights. I flew to Dublin, where we would discover how Google manages to pay less tax with a very ingenious system. "30 years ago, nobody could have imagined this district of Dublin. Today, it's the new kingdom of high-tech. Designer skyscrapers have sprung up, including this huge building in Google colours. The American firm set up shop here 12 years ago. It employs almost 2,500 people, but what do they do in Dublin? When we asked them, it was hard to get any answer.
Hi, are you working for Google? Hi, what kind of job are you doing here?
Hello.
What kind of job are you doing here for Google?
I was asking.
We are for French television from Paris.
We're not supposed to talk about it.
You can talk to journalists? Why? Can at least say what you're doing, what kind of job you're doing?
I can direct you to our press team if you'd like to have a chat with them.
But security interrupted our discussion.
No, there's no filming inside any of the offices.
But we are on the street, so we can't film here. I'm in the street.
You're on Google property now.
Where is the end and the beginning? Okay, so here I'm public, here I'm Google. Okay, so if I say here I'm good.
Stop recording.
Why?
You cannot record. If I say don't record, don't record.
Okay.
We tried our luck farther on.
Hi, sorry to bother you. Are you working for Google?
No.
You're Google. You're Google. I see that.
I've been taught to say no. I can't help you.
What kind of job are you doing here?
I'm in sales. This is like the EU headquarters.
Yeah.
So you can imagine we serve the European markets.
So why does Google bill all its advertising from Ireland? I'd find the answer at the prestigious university Trinity College, where I met a renowned professor in finance.
Hello, how are you?
Nice to meet
How are
you.
Yes, come in and take a seat.
Here, James Stewart is holding a precious document, the annual financial statement of Google Ireland Limited. Its profits are staggering, over 17 billion euros in 2013.
Google Ireland Limited invoices its customers in France, the UK, Germany and elsewhere for advertising. The revenues accrue to Google Ireland, which sent out the invoice. So Google Ireland is very, very important. It's the main operating subsidiary of Google outside the US.
The reason Google chose Ireland as its main source of revenue in Europe is due to an advantageous tax avoidance system known as the Double Irish Arrangement, a rather complex system. So James explained it with a quick diagram.
Most of that 17 billion is transferred to Google Ireland Holdings because Google Ireland Holdings owns the intellectual property for using the search engine. And that is that Google Ireland Holdings is bilocated. It's also located in Bermuda. The corporate tax rate in Bermuda is 0%. The overall rate of corporate tax on Google Ireland profits is very, very low indeed.
So Double Irish means a company residing in two countries at the same time. Thanks to this completely legal tax avoidance, Google's tax rate in Europe is only 2.4%, 10 times below average. Google has therefore made tax savings of almost 3 billion euros since 2007, a huge shortfall for a number of European states. The United Kingdom summoned the boss of Google Europe to explain this financial structuring.
We pay all the tax you require us to pay.
We're not accusing you of being illegal, we're accusing you of being immoral.
Faced with pressure from its fellow EU countries, Ireland finally yielded. In November of last year, it put a stop to Double Irish. From now on, Google can no longer transfer its profits to a tax haven. The group has 5 years to get into line. For associations fighting against the tax evasion of multinationals, the end of Double Irish still isn't enough.
Hi, nice to meet you, Himer. How are
Good
you?
morning, Sophie. How are you?
Good? Yeah?
Very good. We want an end to those kind of sweetheart deals for companies so that they have to pay their fair share in whichever country they operate and where they make those profits.
Without tax harmonisation in Europe, Google will continue being able to bill its advertising from EU countries with the lowest taxes. But it's more than tax avoidance that has made Google massively powerful. It's also because it knows so much about us. Google is a totally free search engine. In return for this service, we tell it all the slightest details about ourselves, enabling to send us ever more targeted advertising. We head to the Paris suburbs. It's early morning. Even when taking care of his daughter, Pejvan always has his mobile at hand.
Oui, c'est Mathis.
This is his totally geolocalized photo album for his recent vacation. It has the trip itinerary, the date and location of each photo. Everything is indicated. And yet none of it was recorded by Pejvan. Google created the album all by itself.
La première fois, je me suis dit, mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Après, j'ai regardé et j'ai trouvé que le rendu était vraiment sympa. Donc, tout de suite, l'appréhension disparaît, en fait.
With a new app developed by Google, Pejvan is geolocalized around the clock. The web giant always knows where he is and can even tell him what time to leave for his meetings.
Il est temps de partir pour arriver à l'entretien. Ce qui est pratique, c'est que quand il sait où se trouve le lieu du rendez-vous, il calcule les trajectoires, les directions, il sait s'il y a des embouteillages, et donc il m'avertit au moment où il pense qu'il faut que je parte.
Before setting off, Pejvan leaves a message of his own with Google.
Ok Google, rappelle-moi de sortir les poubelles en rentrant chez moi.
Voici votre rappel défini pour se déclencher lorsque vous êtes à l'endroit suivant, domicile. Voulez-vous l'enregistrer?
Oui.
Pejvan doesn't need to give a time. The American firm knows his work and home addresses, and it will know exactly when he arrives home.
Là, au moment où je vais rentrer chez moi, il va se rendre compte que je suis chez moi et il va me rappeler de sortir les poubelles.
Google can do this because it analyses all of Pejvan's data. His contacts, his emails, his photos, his schedule. A very intrusive personal assistant that keeps him informed even in his workplace.
Bon, par exemple, là, en fait, j'ai mon prochain rendez-vous pour le déjeuner. Donc, il m'affiche l'endroit du déjeuner, l'heure et notre emplacement de parking. Sachant qu'on n'a à aucun moment informé Google qu'on prenait la voiture et qu'on se garait quelque part, etc. Donc, il a tout déduit de lui-même sans que j'ai besoin de faire la moindre intervention.
Google anticipe tout sur ce que vous voulez faire.
Il essaye, ouais. Donc, avec ce que ça peut avoir d'un peu effrayant.
Scary indeed. Through being geolocalized, Pejvan has given lots of info to the American firm. You only need to look at his Google account to see that. The web giant knows everything he has searched for on the internet for years. He has stocked his 3,330 photos, his 86,709 emails, and all his movements 24/7. Google can even reconstruct all his journeys to the nearest meter.
Google sait énormément de choses sur moi.
What does Google do with this data? How long does it stock it? Regarding this, confidentiality rules are somewhat hazy. This has been reproached by CNIL, the French Data Protection Authority, which fined Google the maximum amount of €150,000. Over a year after this sanction, Google has modified its practices, but not far enough in the eyes of French and European law. And yet, Google is going even further. It now even collects children's data. The town of Albi in southwestern France. In the high school yard, most students are on their smartphones.
Who knew it was possible to create a sunscreen with high sun protection that doesn't feel greasy on? We did. At Neutrogena, we bring the best of skincare to sun care. Neutrogena. See what's possible.
Sold the car. Went cruising. Bought the car. Hit the road. Get more from gumtree.com.au. Buy, sell, win.
If a man want try me, no time.
The town of Albi in southwestern France. In the high school yard, most students are on their smartphones, surfing on Google, of course. But here, Google doesn't stop at the classroom door.
Allez-vous rentrer, s'il vous plaît?
Lionel Brun is the IT teacher for this final year class. In the past 3 years, he has changed his lesson plan dramatically.
Normalement, vous êtes autonome. Dans 20 minutes, vous avez rendu la copie. Bon, ben allez-y.
For their exercises, no more pens and paper. The teacher sends a document to their computers. Each student can then access it and do the exercise directly. All thanks to a tool developed for schools by Google.
Bien, les 20 minutes sont à présent écoulées. Donc, vous allez rendre la copie.
To send in their work, there's nothing easier, just a simple click. The teacher receives it on his computer, and he can correct and score it much faster than with pen and paper.
C'est assez pratique. Ça fait gagner du temps.
A good way for Google to gain loyalty at a young age. But not only that. To use this application in school, the teacher has opened Gmail accounts for each of the students, such as Joris. We asked him to log into his account and to check out his history. Surprise, surprise. Google knows all of his movements outside of school, his credit card number, and the purchases he has made with it.
Je m'attendais pas à ça. Je savais pas tout ça. Les paiements, les trajets qu'on faisait, tout ça, non, je savais pas.
In fact, Joris is permanently connected to his Gmail account via his Android phone that goes everywhere with him. He uses it to buy video games, for example. That's how Google knows what he's up to when he's not in the classroom. So Google seems to be taking advantage of schools to collect the personal data of students, and the teacher is well aware of this.
Est-ce que je suis gêné par le fait que des grandes entreprises collectent des informations sur des jeunes? Si, bien sûr, c'est pas plaisant. Pour l'instant, la balance, elle penche du côté des usages, donc on préfère l'utiliser.
This teacher has decided to trust Google, and he's not alone. 30 million students worldwide now use Google at school. Of course, you can delete the history of your surfing and movements, but that's not always enough. On Google, there are indelible traces that stay with us forever, some which we'd like to forget. You won't see his face. Nicholas preferred to remain anonymous. And here's why. When he types his name into Google, he's top of the list, with a series of photos of him scantily dressed.
Le problème, c'est qu'en fait, ces photos ont été reprises par plein de sites internet, par plein de blogs, et ça a nuit à mon image, et donc ça, je veux pas.
He took these photos 3 years ago. He was a business school student and did some modelling to make ends meet. Since then, he has received a number of refusals when looking for work.
Je recherchais de l'emploi, j'ai postulé, j'ai fait parvenir mon CV, j'ai passé l'entretien, ça s'est très bien passé. Et quelques semaines après, ma candidature n'avait pas été retenue. J'avais trop de contenu sur Internet, ça passait pas, c'était trop osé, ça posait un véritable problème.
He finally found a job. His boss gave him a chance on one condition, that he wiped himself off Google. So he filled in what's called a right to oblivion form available online. Basically, he asked Google to erase all links to sites associated with his name. There were more than 100 of them. A few weeks later, he received the reply, negative. According to Google, Nicholas is a model. His photos could help him find work.
C'est pas mon métier, donc ils sont à côté de la plaque. Je peux pas avoir quelqu'un au téléphone, je peux pas envoyer le courrier. Il y a une réponse, elle est définitive, et après on peut plus rien faire.
Nicholas's case isn't an exception. Google receives almost 500 requests a day and refuses 3/4 of them. So, to wipe his past off of Google, Nicholas has decided to call on a specialist agency.
Vous allez bien? Ça va?
Très bien.
Bertrand Girard has been running this agency for 3 years. Its speciality, helping web users to earn back their reputation on Internet. And it won't be easy for Nicholas.
Ces photos, on ne peut pas les effacer. Ce qu'on peut faire, c'est faire en sorte que Google ne choisisse plus dans le bandeau images les photos qu'il a lui choisies là, mais les photos que le client choisit.
For that, Bertrand has asked Nicholas to bring in new photos of him, with more clothes on. He'll post them on blogs, open a Twitter account, and post an online CV. Soon, Nicholas will have a new digital identity on Google.
Et du coup, les contenus qui lui posent problème aujourd'hui, qui sont sur la première page, n'apparaîtront plus en première page. Ils seront relégués en deuxième ou en troisième page.
Highlighting Nicholas's new identity on the search engine is the job of these engineers. But it doesn't come cheaply. It will cost him over 4,000 euros.
C'est un budget. Après, je pense que le jeu en vaut la chandelle. Donc, il y a vraiment on capitalise là-dessus, et je pense qu'effectivement, il y aura un retour derrière. Donc, j'ai hâte de voir le résultat.
Nicholas will have to be patient. More than a month after our shoot, the new blogs are there on page 2 of Google. But he'll have to wait 5 months more before they appear top of page 1 in place of the scantily dressed photos. To seek oblivion, Nicholas had a less expensive solution than a private agency, filling a complaint with CNIL, the French Data Protection Authority. Daniela Parot is an inspector at CNIL. Every month she receives complaints from web users who have received refusals from Google to erase their traces.
Là, on voit la liste des plaintes qui sont arrivées ce mois-ci. Ça va varier d'une vingtaine à, pour les mois où il y en a le plus, une quarantaine.
But the cases are often complex. Daniela finds it hard to decide which are the most urgent, so she studies the trickiest cases with the help of her colleague.
Des référencements et quelqu'un... C'est une personne, donc le plaignant, a raté son examen parce qu'il était en garde à vue. Et il y a eu un article, il a été interviewé, et il y a eu un article sur ce moment délicat.
The complainant wants his name removed from the embarrassing article because he's unable to find a job. To decide which cases to fight, CNIL has set out 13 criteria. In this particular case, there's no doubt.
On regarde de l'ancienneté, du préjudice pour la personne et bon, de l'intérêt effectivement de l'article au regard de l'information du public. On peut considérer qu'on serait plutôt sur un
déréférencement. Oui.
In layman's terms, the article will no longer appear when you type in the individual's name. That's what CNIL will demand of Google. But it won't win outright. The link will be erased in France on google.fr, but not outside Europe on google.com. An example with one recently treated case.
Je suis sur le .fr, donc le contenu en question n'apparaît pas. Je vais passer sur le .com, et là, eh bien, le blog en question ressort en premier résultat. Et donc l'information qui posait problème pour la personne et finalement est toujours accessible en .com.
CNIL has demanded that Google erase the traces of these individuals even outside of Europe. Google has a good memory, and it's all the more worrying that American intelligence services can spy on us using its search engines. That's what whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed 2 years ago. I headed to London, where I would meet a member of WikiLeaks. The organisation, founded by Julian Assange, is famous for having published documents classified top secret in the United States. In London, a man has given me a rendezvous in a rather unexpected place. The Ecuadorian embassy. Threatened with extradition to the US for espionage, Julian Assange sought refuge here 3 years ago. His spokesman, Christine Hafsen, visits him every week. Like after every visit, he came to greet the handful of die-hard supporters.
Hello. So good. I mean, it really feels it's good to have the support, the show of support, and especially for Julian Assange, I mean, being locked in there, so you can look out the window.
This former investigative reporter for Icelandic TV has been the spokesman for WikiLeaks for 5 years, an exposed and sensitive role. 6 months ago, he received a big surprise via his Gmail account. Google informed him that they had turned over all of the private data on his account to the US Justice Department.
They want the copies of all emails to me and from me, draft emails, deleted emails, all kinds of information about where I was when I entered into the account. I was quite shocked. It's basically a total invasion of my privacy.
This virtual raid was carried out on the request of the US Justice Department because it is prosecuting WikiLeaks for espionage. But it demanded that this request be kept secret. Google has only just informed Kristin about it, although the data was turned over 3 years ago.
What is more important for me to know about it instantly, so I can practice my all my ability to fight back. So it's the secrecy that is extremely serious. We know that Twitter was handed a similar kind of sealed warrant. They took the gag order to court and were able actually to win that.
He believes his case is proof of collusion between Google and the authorities.
If we believe that they tried their best to resist, the courts did not listen to their arguments, but I have a suspicion that they didn't try very hard. We know this company pretty well through our investigation of the company, and it wouldn't surprise us that they would try to keep a very close and amiable relationship with the US government.
Kristin isn't the only person concerned. Last year, 50,000 Gmail accounts were turned over to the US Justice Department or the National Security Agency. personal data collected from here or there. Traces difficult to erase. Gmail accounts spied on without us knowing. So to protect their private lives, some web users have made a radical choice: to de-Googleize themselves.
Did you stand there all alone? Oh, I cannot explain what's going on.
Even when she's singing, Alexia can't do without a computer. Like her brother Antoine, she's a screen addict. But when she surfs the web, her habits are rather different to others from her generation. When she logs onto the net, this is what appears: a little duck. It's thanks to this little duck that this agronomy student does all her research on internet. What pleased Alexia was this slogan that appears on the opening page.
Le moteur de recherche qui ne vous espionne pas.
This search engine doesn't record a history of her web searches.
J'ai le droit à ma vie privée, il n'y a pas de raison. Que quelqu'un sache tout ce que je fais sur Internet, c'est exactement comme si j'avais une caméra dans mon salon.
For email, she uses a French messaging service with a protection system. A quick demo. When she sends a mail, she clicks on this padlock icon. A few minutes later, when Antoine receives it, this is what appears.
Là, le texte incompréhensible, c'est le message que Alexia vient de m'envoyer. Il est illisible, on ne peut obtenir aucune information de ce texte.
To read it, he must type in a password given to him by his sister. In one click, the message is unscrambled. But unlike Google, the service isn't free.
Avec Google, on paye avec nos données, sans vraiment en avoir forcément conscience, sans savoir vraiment ce qu'ils vont en faire derrière. Mes données ne concernent que moi, j'ai pas envie de marchander ma vie privée. Donc moi, j'ai préféré choisir de payer avec de l'argent. C'est pas énorme, c'est 3 € par mois. Et avec ces 3 € par mois, je sais que je reste propriétaire des mails que j'échange avec n'importe qui.
But one field where it's difficult to de-Googlize yourself is the telephone. Alexia still uses an Android mobile managed by Google.
Bonjour, ça va très bien.
So she tries to restrict her traces.
On va où, au fait?
Au magasin de musique.
To find her way, she found an alternative to Google Maps: OpenStreetMaps, an application that doesn't record users' movements.
OpenStreetMap fonctionne très bien. Leur objectif, c'est pas du tout de récupérer des données pour en tirer quelque chose et faire de l'argent. C'est vraiment juste mettre à disposition une carte pour les utilisateurs.
In the end, Alexia and Antoine are almost managing to live Google-free. Today, new search engines are competing fiercely, such as Qwant and Framerbee in France. But Google is still far ahead in terms of wild ideas, like sending up hot air balloons, connecting the planet internet, developing driverless cars, building smart robots, making interactive glasses, and even making us immortal. So I can always stop using Google, but will Google ever stop using me?